with each other. The latest comment from Thai Prime Minister, he still stand on his comment yesterday that there won't be no immediate.
They're retaliating to attacks by the other. More than 140,000 people have fled attacked areas.
Cambodia has no fighter jets, no F-16s, no Gripens, no air-to-air missiles that can contest the sky. Yet Thailand, a country with one of the most capable air forces in Southeast Asia, is already striking targets deep inside Cambodia, while both sides trade artillery and drone attacks along an 817-kilometer border. So here's the question that decides whether this turns into a short border war or a regional crisis. If Cambodia can't win the air, how can it still trap Thailand in a conflict Thailand can't cleanly finish? Because this story is not about jets. It's about what happens when geography, nationalism, and escalation logic collide, and why the stronger military can still be the one that bleeds the most politically. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand what a Cambodia-Thailand war would actually look like, and what happens after the first week. Let's start by destroying the most common misconception. People assume Cambodia's military is small, outdated, and irrelevant. The reality is more dangerous. Cambodia's strength isn't in modern air power, it's in manpower, ground forces, and the ability to make a war ugly. On paper, Cambodia has about 124,300 active personnel, and its largest component is the army, roughly 75,000 soldiers, backed by hundreds of tanks and large quantities of artillery. Its air force, however, is not built for air combat. Cambodia has a small fleet built around transport aircraft and helicopters, no fighter aircraft. So if Cambodia can't challenge Thailand in the sky, how does this ever become a serious war? By turning the war into something air power can't solve. Now look at Thailand. Thailand's military is larger, wealthier, and far more modern. Thailand fields over 360,000 active personnel. Its army alone is around 245,000, including a large conscript component with significant armor and artillery. And in the air, Thailand has the advantage that usually decides conflicts early: F-16s, Gripens, modern surveillance, and strike capability. And it's not theoretical. Thailand has already used fighter jets in this conflict cycle. We've seen reports of airstrikes, artillery, drones, and escalating pressure on supply lines, including moves to restrict fuel flows that Bangkok believes are reaching Cambodian forces. So if Thailand has the air advantage, why doesn't that end the war quickly? Because modern wars are not won by being stronger, they're won by controlling escalation. And Cambodia's entire leverage is built around denying Thailand a clean escalation ladder. Here's what most people miss about this border. This is not open desert. This is not a flat front line. This is jungle, hills, choke points, contested temple zones, and narrow roads that decide where supplies can move. And that terrain changes everything. Airstrikes can destroy, but they can occupy. They can't hold ground. They cannot patrol a jungle path. They cannot permanently secure a disputed ridgeline that becomes politically sacred the moment a soldier dies on it. That's where Cambodia's strategy becomes simple: not to defeat Thailand in the air, not to invade Bangkok, but to turn the border into a grinder, a slow conflict where every kilometer costs more than the prize is worth. Now let's talk about the Gripen question. Thailand buying more Gripens doesn't mean Thailand is preparing to dogfight Cambodia. Cambodia has no fighters to dogfight. Thailand is buying Gripens for something else: sortie generation, readiness, sustained pressure. Gripen is built to get back into the air fast, operate with a lighter footprint, and keep a small fleet, generating constant patrols and quick strikes. That matters in a border war because the goal isn't a single decisive battle. It's to dominate the tempo, to hit targets, disrupt movement, enforce air denial, and maintain psychological pressure every day. Thailand already operates Gripen CDs. A new Gripen EF purchase modernizes that posture over time, adding capability, upgrades, and long-term fleet continuity. In a war, that translates into three realities. First, Thailand can keep aircraft in the air more consistently, which matters more than having the best jet on paper. Second, Thailand can strike quickly when intelligence appears, especially against artillery positions, supply convoys, and drones. Third, Thailand can impose escalation dominance. not by conquering Cambodia, but by making Cambodia pay every time it concentrates forces near the border. So what happens if this turns into full war? It doesn't start with tanks rolling toward Phnom Penh. It starts with a political trigger, a Temple Zone incident, a drone shoot-down, a strike that kills civilians, a mine incident, something that makes backing down impossible. Once that happens, the war enters 3 phases, and the first phase is where most people misunderstand what winning looks like. Phase 1 is air and fires. Thailand pushes immediate advantages, air patrols, precision strikes where possible, artillery counter-battery, drone hunting. And Cambodia responds the only way it can: disperse, dig in, hide in terrain, move under canopy, rely on decentralization. This is where Thailand can destroy targets, but also where mistakes become strategic disasters, because every bomb that lands near civilian shelters, every damaged bridge, every destroyed building that appears on global media turns into international pressure. In modern conflict, the battlefield is not just the border, it's the screen. And Thailand, as the larger economy with more to lose, is far more exposed to reputational damage, investor fear, and diplomatic blowback. That's why air power doesn't automatically equal freedom of action. Sometimes it creates liabilities. Phase 2 is the ground reality. This is where war becomes expensive. Border towns, ridges, and supply roads become the real objectives. Cambodia doesn't need to win big battles. It needs to make the ground fight long. Because once the ground fight stretches, Thailand faces problems that jets can't fix. Casualties, rotations, domestic criticism, budget drain, and the constant risk that a limited operation turns into a war Thailand owns politically. This is exactly how weaker states create deterrence, not by defeating you, but by making you live inside the consequences. Phase 3 is the escalation trap. This is where the future gets decided, because as the conflict grows, Thailand will apply pressure on Cambodian logistics, fuel, cross-border routes, trade choke points, maritime risk. Cambodia, in response, will look for political leverage, international mediation, ASEAN pressure, sympathy optics, claims of sovereignty violation. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If Thailand applies maximum pressure, Cambodia becomes more dependent on external support. If Thailand restrains itself, the conflict drags. Either way, Thailand is pulled into a strategic dilemma where winning becomes unclear. That's how wars become stuck. So what does Cambodia actually have in terms of military power? It has enough to make the border dangerous, large ground forces compared to its size, artillery, armor that may be older but still lethal in close terrain, and a security structure that can mobilize quickly near disputed zones. But Cambodia's real power is not hardware. It's the ability to make the conflict politically symbolic. Once conflict is tied to national pride and sacred geography, rational bargaining collapses. That's when wars expand faster than leaders expect. Now here's the part most analysts avoid saying directly. If a Cambodia-Thailand war expands, the biggest losers may not be decided on the battlefield. They may be decided in the economy. Tourism collapses, border trade breaks, investor confidence shakes, and regional diplomacy turns into a pressure cooker. Thailand's strength makes it more integrated into regional markets. Cambodia's relative isolation makes it less exposed, so in a prolonged conflict, the stronger state often bleeds more economically, even while winning militarily. That's why deterrence isn't just about weapons, it's about asymmetry of consequences. So let's answer the core questions clearly. How large is Cambodia's army? Roughly 75,000 in the army component, within about 124,300 active personnel overall. How large is Thailand's army? Around 245,000 in the army, within more than 360,000 active personnel overall. What happens if Thailand fights with Gripens? Not air-to-air battles. It fights a readiness war, persistent patrols, rapid strikes, pressure on tempo, a constant message that Cambodia cannot mass forces without being seen. And if war breaks out between them, what happens in the future? 3 likely outcomes. 1. A ceasefire after a high casualty spike, driven by outside mediation, because both sides realize the political cost is outrunning the battlefield gains. 2. A frozen conflict with recurring clashes, because neither side can concede symbolically, even if they can't afford escalation. 3. A prolonged border war that transforms the region, with supply lines, fuel routes, and external alignments becoming the real battlefield. And that's the final point. The most dangerous wars aren't the ones both sides think they might lose. They're the ones one side thinks it can win cleanly. Thailand can win the air. Thailand can win most set-piece engagements. But a war is not a scoreboard. A war is a chain reaction. And once that chain reaction begins, the question stops being who has better jets. The question becomes who can survive the consequences of using them.